Welcome to Lesson 1 in Unit 12, Exploring Earth. In this lesson, students will work to answer the question, where did early explorers live? In this lesson, students are introduced to 3 different groups of people who explored the world in the past millennia: Inuit, Polynesian, and Nordic explorers. Students figure out that early Inuit, Polynesian, and Nordic explorers lived in very different locations and environments, but all of them were still able to explore. There is more water than land on Earth, and globes and maps can be used as representations of the Earth. They make connections to the storyline by researching 3 different groups of early explorers. They will follow these 3 groups throughout the unit. There are several opportunities for ELA and social studies cross-curricular connections throughout the lesson. You can look for specific standard connections in the Unit 12 Teacher Guide. This lesson will take approximately 4 days to complete. You'll begin the unit and the Lesson 1 Engage by introducing students to the anchoring phenomenon. Early explorers traveled the world without maps. You'll show students a world map and ask what they might know about maps and how they tell us where to go. Be sure to see the noted opportunity to attend to equity should the provided anchoring phenomenon not be compelling for your students. Students will find the anchoring phenomenon more interesting if they can connect to it personally. If you want to change the phenomenon for your context, keep the following questions in mind. Is it going to be relevant to my students' lives and/or particularly engaging to them? Is it going to motivate students to want to explain the types and forms of land and bodies of water on Earth, how maps and globes can be used as models, how small pieces or objects can be used as building blocks to make many different things, and how water exists in many places on Earth, including as solid ice and liquid water. During the discussion, you can post and discuss the map and Explorer vocabulary cards. You'll also ask students questions about exploring and explorers. Then have them use their Explorer Drawing journal page to draw what they think an explorer looks like. You'll have students turn and talk to share what the explorer in their drawing is exploring. You'll then show students images of early explorers. You'll ask students what they notice and wonder about the explorers in the images. You'll allow them to turn and talk to discuss their observations. As students are sharing their observations and questions, provide them with the sentence stem, "Now I'm wondering about," to model how we can use observations to develop questions. Once students have their individual questions, you will guide them in sharing those questions and creating categories for their questions on the class driving question board. Once categories are created, guide the class in collapsing them into bigger categories that have closer alignment to the driving questions provided in the unit. Do not answer questions at this time or correct student thinking. They will explore their questions and explain this phenomenon throughout the unit. Here are examples of driving question boards from other K-5 units. They depict the students' questions in categories, some along with a drawn model from the unit. Some driving question boards are simple lists of questions or groups of sticky notes posted on chart paper. Teachers and students can manipulate and move around questions and label categories together. For the Explore portion of the lesson, you'll set up the 6 early explorer stations. You'll put students into groups of 4. They will read the text on the cards and make observations about each region and group of people. Pause the video here to see the list of items from the MySci kit needed for this investigation. You'll have students record their observations about each explorer group in their Early Explorer Groups student journal page. They will use the maps on the Early Explorer cards to make a key and color in the map on the Early Explorer Regions student journal pages. In the Explain portion of the lesson, students will engage in a class discussion. You'll invite them to gather and analyze their observations around the Explorer cards. You'll use the provided questions to guide the discussion around where did early explorers live. The goal of this discussion is to analyze student data and identify similarities and differences between the explorers on the cards. You will use the discussion to create the Lesson 1 summary chart. From the discussion, students should understand that maps can be used to show information, like where a group of people lived. During the discussion, you can post and discuss the Inuit, Polynesian, Norse, and Legend vocabulary cards. You'll then have students use their Early Explorer Regions student journal page to point out different locations on the map for each explorer group. As they point them out, mark the locations on the map. As they point out each location, you'll name the group that lived there, show the images of their location, and you'll discuss the water in the images and whether it is liquid or frozen. For the elaborate portion, you'll show students the inflatable globe and ask questions about the globe compared to maps. You can post and discuss the globe vocabulary card. You'll set up the globe to play Under My Thumb with students to explore some of these patterns. You'll have students graph their own charts and record the patterns in the Surface of the Earth student journal page. Students will observe that the Earth is made of mostly water. For the evaluate portion, you'll have students complete the quick check on the Earth's surface, land, and water student journal page. To support student sense-making across the unit, orient them back to the driving question board. Ask, what did we learn about where these early explorers lived? And what new questions do we have? By the end of this lesson, students will have obtained information to describe 3 different groups of early explorers, and obtained information to identify the locations of 3 early explorer groups on a map. In Lesson 2, students will select one of the 3 groups of people and create a salt dome model of their home landforms and water. For the optional extend, students can investigate other explorer groups of interest. For more information about this unit, visit mysitepartners.com.